is a very proud steam engine. He's the fastest engine on the island of Sodor. He loves speeding along his line with the wind blowing across his funnel. "You've broken the record again," said his driver. "I'm the fastest," boasted Gordon. But not all the engines were impressed. "Speed isn't everything," said James smugly. "But being reliable and useful is," said Thomas. "You slow engines will never understand," snorted Gordon, "because you'll never go as fast as me." The Fat Controller arrived with news of a special for Thomas. "I want you to collect the jet engine and take it to the airfield." "What's a jet engine?" asked Percy. "A jet engine goes forward by pushing hot air out of its back," the Fat Controller said. "Just like when you blow up a balloon and let it go," added Thomas. "It's very fast." Thomas likes making special deliveries for the Fat Controller. It makes him feel special. But secretly, he wished he could go as fast as Gordon. Just once. Thomas arrived at the docks excited to see the jet engine. It was shiny and modern, and Thomas had never seen anything like it. He just couldn't wait to start his journey, but Cranky was taking his time. "Hurry up," huffed Thomas. "This is a special. Cranky did not like being told what to do, especially by an engine. He became so cranky that he was careless with his hook. His hook knocked the switch, and the switch started the jet engine, and the engine began to whine. The whine got louder and louder and louder. "Uh-oh," said Cranky. Before he could say anything else, the jet engine was rocketing Thomas up the track. "Oh," said Thomas. The driver tried to put on the brakes, but Thomas couldn't stop. "Oh, boy!" The station master called ahead. "Clear the lines, it's a runaway train." Signals were changed and points were switched. Thomas had never been so excited. Thomas flew by James and rocketed past Henry and raced by Percy. They were amazed. Bertie was excited when he saw Thomas flying down the track. "Want a race, Thomas?" beeped Bertie. Never mind. No one had ever seen an engine go so fast. Gordon had no idea that Thomas was racing along the main line. "I am the fastest," said Gordon proudly. "Hi, Gordon. Bye, Gordon." Gordon could not believe what he had seen. At last, the jet engine ran out of fuel, and Thomas was back under his own power. He steamed gently back into Knapford Station. "Sorry for overtaking you back there, Gordon." "Overtake me? I didn't notice," Gordon huffed. "You didn't notice the fastest engine on the island," said Henry. "Yes, I am the fastest," puffed Thomas. Percy felt a little sorry for Gordon. "Gordon doesn't have to go as fast as a jet engine. He's a steam engine." "But he's still full of hot air," whistled James, and Gordon wheeshed away. The Fat Controller's engines love being shiny and clean. It makes them feel cheerful as they puff across the island of Sodor. Percy often has the dirtiest work to do, but he likes to be clean as well as any other engine. So washdowns are important to Percy. But the Fat Controller had bad news. Due to a water shortage, he said, no engine shall have more than one washdown a day. Usefulness before cleanliness, he added, and left. Percy was upset. I get dirty, he complained. I need washdowns. Gordon only does it to feel important. I am important, Gordon sniffed. I'm an express engine. You're a pouty puffer, Percy, teased James. No, I'm not, wheezed Percy, and he chuffed away. Percy was loading trucks at the docks. He was trying extra hard to stay clean, but the troublesome trucks were being naughty. As Percy pushed them under the coal chute, they sang out. On, they cried. Percy found himself under the chute, and coal dust flew everywhere. Oh, no, coughed Percy. I'm filthy. Percy felt awful, but he knew he had to carry on. On the way to Callan Station, the troublesome trucks teased Percy even more. Clickety-clack! Don't look back! Dirty Percy's on our track! Be quiet! Percy snapped. When Percy arrived at Callan Station, he was very upset. From now on, I'm only doing work where I won't get dirty, he said. Harold the helicopter was at Callan Station picking up medical supplies. Hello, Percy, he called. And he took off, blowing cinders and ashes everywhere. Not again, Percy cried. I want a washdown. Usefulness before cleanliness, reminded his driver. I want to be useful where I can't get dirty, Percy huffed. There's a load of sugar going to the chocolate factory, his driver said. We could take the sugar trucks. Sugar, said Percy. That's nice and clean. Percy was pleased. Percy didn't know that earlier a leaky truck had spilled oil on the track. When he approached the chocolate factory, his driver applied the brakes, but Percy's wheels just skidded on the oily rails. Oh no! hooted Percy. Yuck! He groaned. I've never been this dirty. He was covered from funnel to firebox in sticky, gooey chocolate. Back at the sheds, everyone thought it was very funny. You look good enough to eat, Thomas hooted. Pudding, Percy, teased James. Chalk ice on wheels, chipped in Henry. Disgraceful, said Gordon pompously. Ahem, said a stern-sounding voice. It was the Fat Controller. You have had a trying day, Percy, he said. Yes, sir, replied Percy from beneath the chocolate. But you've shown us all that usefulness does come before cleanliness. So, he added, you shall have your washdown. Oh, sir. And a new coat of paint. Percy just beamed. Brendam Docks is one of the busiest dockyards on all the island of Sodor. It's where ships and engines and cranes alike are busy day and night, every day of the year. But poor Cranky the crane never gets a nap. He never gets to sleep early. He works all the time. And his only company are the gulls that settle on his arm. So Cranky is always cranky. "Ahoy there, Cranky!" cried Salty. "Where have you been?" snapped Cranky. "And a good day to you too, Captain." Bill and Ben arrived for work, full of mischief. "Hurry up!" barked Cranky. "I haven't got all day." "You're no fun," grumbled Bill. "You wouldn't be fun if you were stuck up here," snapped Cranky. "So that's why you're cranky," said Bill. "You're lonely," said Ben. "I'm not," Cranky cranked. "So it's company you be needin'," said Salty. "Reminds me of a lonely old Grand Banks lighthouse keeper." "Not another one of your stories," cried Cranky. "Oh, please, Salty," they chimed. "We haven't heard it." "'Twas in the middle of a wee naughty storm," Salty began, "the likes of which you see once in a lifetime." This made Cranky very cranky. So cranky that he swung his arm around and dropped the pipes onto the tracks instead of the trucks. "Whoops," said Cranky meekly. "You've blown the main now, matey," said Salty. The engines were trapped. "You're going to get into trouble," sang Bill and Ben. The Fat Controller was in his office being measured for a new waistcoat. When he heard the news, he left immediately for the docks. The Fat Controller knew that any delay at the docks could cause confusion. "You have made a terrible mess, Cranky," he said sternly. "I'm sorry, sir," Cranky whispered. "You engines will have to stay here tonight until Harvey clears up this mess in the morning." Cranky's heart sank as Salty uttered those fateful words. "That reminds me of a story. It was a bitter cold winter. The brave little ship was stuck until the ice melted the next spring. Barely made it round the Cape. After 100 scary days at sea without a scratch, he sailed into port and crashed his bow not 15 feet from my buffers. Luckily, no one was hurt." "Except my ears," wailed Cranky. Salty spent all night telling tales of powerful storms, daring rescues, and brave little ships. And when the sun rose, he was still talking and talking and talking. "I can't take any more," groaned Cranky. Harvey the crane engine arrived. "The Fat Controller sent me to help clear away this mess," he puffed proudly. Cranky was so pleased the engines would be going soon, he forgot to be cranky. "I'll never misbehave again," he promised, "as long as I don't have to listen to any more of Salty's stories." And after Harvey and the workmen had cleared the wreckage, Cranky worked hard all day. He carefully loaded the trucks, helped speed the engines on their way, and he said please and thank you. "This is new," puffed Thomas, but he had spoken too soon. Cranky couldn't help himself. "It was nice while it lasted," said Percy, and all the engines laughed. But Cranky was still cranky. The engines on the Fat Controllers Railway love Brendam Docks. There's always lots of work to keep them busy, and they enjoy seeing new arrivals onto the island of Sodor. An exciting new arrival was an engine Cranky the Crane was unloading. It was heavy. "This makes my chain ache," groaned Cranky. "This is Harvey, the crane engine," the Fat Controller said proudly. The other engines thought Harvey looked strange. Harvey was happy to be on the ground. He didn't like dangling from Cranky's arm at all. "These gentlemen are the railway board," the Fat Controller said. "Tomorrow, Harvey will give them a demonstration. If it goes well, he will join the railway." "What's a demonstration?" "Demonstration," said Thomas. "It's when you show off what you can do." "Like when Thomas and I have a race," said Bertie. "Varoom, varoom." That evening, Thomas had just returned from a hard day's work. He saw Harvey parked near the sheds. Harvey could hear the other engines talking about him. This made him sad. "Harvey's different," said Henry. "He doesn't even look like an engine," said Edward. "Surely the Fat Controller won't let him pull coaches," sniffed Gordon. "He's just Cranky on wheels," said James. "He's not taking my mail," said Percy. Thomas felt sorry for Harvey. "Don't worry. Sometimes it takes time to make new friends." But Harvey wasn't sure he wanted to stay where no one wanted him. The next morning, the Fat Controller sent the engines off to a useful day's work. "Maybe my coming here wasn't such a good idea, sir," Harvey chuffed sadly. "Nonsense," said the Fat Controller. "But the engines don't like me. I'm too different." "Different is what makes you special." And that made Harvey feel better. Out on the branch line, Percy was having trouble with trucks. Faster we go, pull him along, don't let him slow." "Help!" cried Percy. His driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. He went off the rails at Bulgy's Bridge. Luckily, no one was hurt. Bertie arrived and was pleased Percy was all right, but he was also very cross. "You've blocked the road," Bertie snapped. He was worried he wouldn't get the gentlemen of the railway board to the demonstration on time. When the Fat Controller heard the news, he went straight to Harvey. "I need you to rescue one of my engines." "I'll do my best, sir," Harvey said bravely, and he set off immediately. Harvey soon arrived and went to work. In no time, Percy was back on the tracks. The gentlemen of the railway board were very impressed. That was the best demonstration of all. The gentlemen of the railway board have decided you shall join the railway. "Oh, thank you, sir," said Harvey proudly. That night, Harvey heard the engines talking again. This time it was different. "Well done, Harvey," said Gordon. "Very useful," said James. "You can take my mail," said Percy. "You see," said Thomas, "different can be good." All the engines agreed. "Welcome to the Sodor Railway," they called. Harvey smiled happily. Harold the helicopter loves flying. Up in the bright blue sky, over the island of Sodor, he looks out for anyone in distress. Sometimes he delivers the mail. This makes Percy very cross. The mail run is done. Is there any more? I can deliver it for you in a jiff. That's what friends are for. Delivering the mail is an engine's job, said Percy grumpily. Percy has many jobs, but carrying the mail is his favourite. It makes him feel really useful. The next morning, Percy was happily pulling the mail train. Must be on time, he chuffed. But up ahead there was trouble with the signal box. It was broken. The signal engineers did not know how long it would take to fix. Percy had to stop. It's not safe for engines to run without signals, but Percy was very upset. I'm going to be late, he cried, and it's not even my fault. The Fat Controller was in his office enjoying his toast and marmalade when he heard the news. Percy is stuck at a broken signal. Then Harold must take the mail. Poor Percy was still waiting and still upset. The last time he was held up, the mail was given to Harold. It made me feel like a really useless engine, he sighed. Well, the mail must arrive on time, said his driver. Just then, they heard a familiar sound coming from above. Hello, said Harold. The Fat Controller says you need my help. That's what friends are for. Oh, no, cried Percy. But the Fat Controller had made up his mind. There was nothing Percy could do. Percy's driver helped load the mailbags into Harold's cargo net. Maybe we should take the mailbags a few at a time, said his pilot. They're very heavy. I'd have to make too many trips. Then I'd be as slow as Percy. And so they loaded all the mail into Harold's net at once. And the engineer continued to work on the signal. Just as they finished loading, a signal engineer cried out. It's fixed, he said. Wait, Harold, shouted Percy. I'm ready to go. But it was too late. Harold had already taken off. Percy watched the mail disappear. He was upset. But then they all heard a strange sound. Watch out for those trees, Harold, cried his pilot. My net is too heavy, wailed Harold. Harold is in trouble, Percy cried. We must try to help him. Are you all right? Called Percy. Just get someone to pull me out of this haystack, sputtered Harold. And Percy did, as fast as he could. The next day, Harold's engine was fixed and he was flying again. Percy was very pleased to see him. Fancy taking the mail, Harold? Percy teased. I'll stand by with the rescue team. All the engines tooted and Harold hovered so low that only Percy could hear. Thanks for getting help to pull me out of that haystack, dear chap, he said. That's all right, said Percy. That's what friends are for. Thomas the Tank Engine enjoys taking specials. Today, he was bringing a special to Brendam Docks. His load was to go onto a cargo ship. The ship was scheduled to depart at sundown. Thomas had to get to the docks before then, but the load was very heavy. So Thomas puffed as hard as he could. He pulled so hard, he broke his coupling rods. He wasn't going anywhere. "Oh dear," Thomas said, "I'll be late." His driver saw an old shed near the track. "If there's a telephone in there, I could call for help," he said. "Hurry," said Thomas, "and be careful, it looks a bit spooky." Then a voice boomed from inside the shed. "Do you mind? I'm trying to sleep." Thomas hoped it wasn't a ghost. Then his driver appeared. "Is it a ghost?" asked Thomas nervously. "It's a surprise," his driver teased. Then the fireman took some of Thomas's coal and headed off to the shed. "She could get us to the fitter's yard," his driver said. "If her boiler holds," added the fireman anxiously. What kind of surprise is that? Thomas wondered. "Thomas, meet Elizabeth," said his driver. At last the doors opened and out chuffed a dirty, grimy steam lorry. "So, you're the little puffer that's broken down," she sniffed. Thomas was cross. "And you're just an old Sentinel lorry," he retorted. "That would be vintage Sentinel lorry," snapped Elizabeth. "And I haven't much time to get your coupling rods." The driver was concerned. Elizabeth was making awful grinding sounds. "She's not built for hills," he said anxiously. "You're losing steam," he called. "Just catching my breath," Elizabeth chuffed. And finally she made it. When Elizabeth returned with Thomas's coupling rods, she was pleased with herself. "And next time, don't be so careless," she scolded. Thomas thought Elizabeth was the rudest lorry he had ever met, but he was very happy to get his new coupling rods. Thomas made it to the docks just in time. "What took you so long?" said the Fat Controller. Thomas told him about his broken coupling rods. He wanted to tell him how rude Elizabeth had been when she rolled up. "Oh, it's you," said Elizabeth, looking down at the Fat Controller. "Have you learned to drive properly yet?" "She's for it now," said Thomas to his driver. "Elizabeth," said the Fat Controller fondly, "my first lorry. I thought you had been lost." They were old friends. It was too much for Thomas. Then Elizabeth told the Fat Controller how she'd been left in the shed for years. The Fat Controller was so pleased Elizabeth had been found, he asked Jem Cole to restore her to her original beauty. And soon Elizabeth had a rich dark colour and gleaming coachworks. "You're the grandest lorry in the whole railroad," the Fat Controller said proudly. "I know," said Elizabeth even more proudly. And Thomas had to agree. She did look grand. It was a tingly spring morning on the island of Sodor. Thomas was excited. The Fat Controller had sent him to collect a special from Jenny Packard. Spot on, Thomas, Miss Jenny said. You'd make a mother proud. Thanks, Miss Jenny, he said. Is this my special? Very special, she answered. I'm Jack, the front loader, he whirred proudly. I can load and unload and carry lots of things. I can haul and shunt, boasted Thomas. And I can get you two chatterboxes off to the quarry, laughed Miss Jenny. Is this your first job at the quarry? Called Thomas. It's my first job on the island, Jack called back. Look out for Max, Thomas added. He's trouble. Soon, Thomas delivered Jack to the quarry. All the machines were busy preparing the site for new railway tracks. Jack couldn't wait to join in. He scooted towards a big excavator. I'm Jack, can I help? Oh my, no, Oliver replied kindly. Help Byron. Byron the bulldozer was shoving rock and rubble with his giant blade. I'm Jack, can I help? I don't need help, boomed Byron. Try Kelly the crane. I'm Jack, he whirred cheerfully. Mind my paint, snapped the lorry. Isabella, scolded Kelly. Sorry, welcome to the pack. And if you want to work, said Kelly. See the foreman, Isabella said cheekily. He's in charge. The foreman introduced Jack to his banksman. I'm here to help you work safely, said the banksman. No speeding and no horseplay, added the foreman. Now go and help Alfie. Yes, sir, replied Jack eagerly, and he raced off. Remember, called the banksman, safety first. Alfie is an excavator. He makes the hardest job seem like play. I'm Jack. I'm here to help. More help means more dirt. More dirt means more fun. I'm Alfie. Jack and Alfie were working hard and having wonderful fun. Suddenly, a huge dump truck roared by. Max! Alfie cried. So that's Max, said Jack. Thomas was right. He is trouble. Look out, Jack, cried Alfie. Max stopped just in time. Jack refused to move. Stop bullying, said Jack bravely. Can't you take a joke? Max grumbled and dieseled away. Thank you, Jack, said Alfie. Then the foreman shouted, Oliver, move this rock. I'll do it, cried Jack. Jack scooped a bucket full of rock. Stop! Shouted his banksman. But he didn't stop. He was too eager to help. No! Shouted Isabella. But it was too late. Oh no! He cried. Oops, Jack sputtered. Miss Jenny was glad Jack wasn't hurt, but she was disappointed. Safety first, she said firmly. Means you don't rush in where you don't belong. I'm sorry, Miss Jenny, Jack said sadly. Maybe you're not ready for the pack, sighed Miss Jenny. We'll see if you can do better tomorrow. After Miss Jenny returned to the yards, Jack was sad. Isabella could see he was unhappy. You're a good front loader, she said. And a good friend, said Alfie. Being a good friend is important, said Thomas. That made Jack feel just a bit better. Thomas chuffed along the branch line, thinking about his new friend, Jack. "I hope he's doing better today," puffed Thomas. Yesterday, Jack had broken the rules and had gotten into trouble. The pack was widening the road beneath the old quarry bridge. Jack and Alfie were loading Max. Dust and dirt flew everywhere. Work had never been so much fun. Jack felt very proud. He'd worked hard, been very good, and followed all the rules. But he was still worried Miss Jenny wouldn't let him stay. Ned the steam shovel was cheerfully clearing rocks. Ned has a big bucket and a big heart. Sometimes his bucket is too full. "Careful, Bumble Bucket." "Sorry," said Ned cheerfully. Thomas couldn't wait to get to the old bridge. He knew the pack were working there. He could see how Jack was doing. Back at the site, the foreman shouted, "Oliver, this topsoil needs moving, now!" "I'll move it," cried Jack. "Jack!" Before anyone could stop him, Jack raced under the bridge. He was about to fill his bucket when he remembered Miss Jenny's warning. "Don't jump in where you don't belong." "Oliver," he said, "this is your job, not mine." "Thank you," Oliver said politely. "Well done, Jack," called Kelly. "Yes, well done," chimed Alfie and Isabella. Jack beamed proudly. Later, Ned was moving under the bridge. His banksman had told him to lower his crane arm. "I must be careful, I must be careful, I must be careful." Then there was trouble. Ned hadn't lowered his crane arm far enough. It knocked loose the important keystones. The bridge started to crumble. Thomas puffed towards the bridge, unaware of the danger ahead. "Thomas!" Jack jumped in and lifted his front loader up against the bridge. He pushed with all his might. Thomas saw the flagman. His driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. "Cinders and ashes!" cried Thomas. Jack didn't let go. Finally, Thomas's driver backed Thomas to safety. "Hold on, Jack," called Kelly, and he rushed to help. Jack couldn't hold the bridge any longer. "Are you all right, Jack?" "I think so." Thomas brought Jack back to the yard. Jack was afraid Miss Jenny would be cross with him. After all, he had jumped in and damaged his arms. But Miss Jenny was pleased. "Spot on, Jack," she said. "You'd make a mother proud. And the tank engine grateful," Thomas chuffed. "It's off to the fitters with you tomorrow, Jack. The pack can't have a front loader with bent arms." "You mean I can stay?" "I wouldn't have it any other way," Miss Jenny grinned. "We're a cracking crew," laughed Kelly. "And all the better for Jack's being here," said Isabella. "Welcome to the pack, Jack," cheered Alfie. Jack was so happy he couldn't think of anything to say, so he just revved his engine and bounced his bucket. As Thomas steamed towards Tidmouth Sheds, he felt very happy. "Yes," he said, "welcome to the pack, Jack." The engines on the island of Sodor like feeling responsible, reliable, and really useful. They work hard to complete their jobs on time. They don't like confusion and delay. But the troublesome trucks delight in mischief, and their mischief causes trouble, as poor Henry found out. "Henry has had an accident and been sent for repairs," said the Fat Controller. "There are no other engines available, so Diesel will help until Henry returns." "Yes, sir," puffed the engines, but they weren't happy. The engines didn't like Diesel. He was always being rude and always showing off. "I hope Henry's mended soon," said Percy. "He moves more trucks than 3 Diesels put together," agreed Thomas. "Trucks are no one's friends," huffed Gordon. The next day, Diesel was working at the docks. "When the Fat Controller sees how good I am," he bragged to the trucks, "he'll get rid of steam engines once and for all." This gave the troublesome trucks an idea. As Diesel shunted them together, they started to sing, "Is that all you can haul? Henry's loads are longer. Is that all you can haul? Henry must be stronger." Diesel was cross. He was sure that he was stronger than Henry. "I'll push you all at the same time," he said. The trucks giggled. "Push us all, that's the longest. Push us all, you'll be the strongest." "That's me," said Diesel, "the world's strongest engine." And Diesel shunted 5 trucks together. Then 10. Then 15. Soon he had an enormous line of 20 trucks. "What's Diesel doing?" cried Percy. "He thinks he's the world's strongest engine," replied Thomas. Diesel didn't know the shunters had set the brakes on the trucks. The troublesome trucks knew, but encouraged Diesel to push anyway. "Push, push, push!" Diesel pushed, and he pushed, and he pushed. But the trucks didn't move, so Diesel decided to pull the trucks instead. Heave ho, you can pull, but we won't go, sang the trucks. This made Diesel very cross. He pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. Help! Grease and oil, Diesel sulked, as the trucks laughed and laughed. The Fat Controller looked down crossly at Diesel. "I thought you would be a proper dockyard Diesel, but I was wrong," he said. "Can you make up for lost time, Henry?" "Oh, yes, sir," Henry replied happily. He backed up to the trucks and the shunters released the brakes. Then Henry pulled away as easy as pie. And the engines cheered. Diesel was sent home in disgrace. But the engines had learned a lesson. "Even troublesome trucks can do you a favour sometimes," chuffed Thomas. "Like getting rid of smelly old Diesel," puffed Percy.